Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery's live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona. Let us proceed with the first question, Pia, after this announcement. This will be the last of the Q&As for the summer in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Southern Hemisphere, it's not the summer, it's the winter. But, so this is June 23rd. And we will resume likely in September. Now, the other thing is, doesn't mean that we will be absent from the channel. We will be putting up regular, highly polished and edited Dhamma talks that we have previously recorded. We have a bank of these things that we do through the year, but they take quite a bit of time to process and produce. So they will be the summer season of Birken Forest Monastery's channel. And so please do watch those. They are full of good information, and usually they're systematic explorations of some sort of talk, especially formal retreats that are given here at the monastery to a live audience. And we'll also be doing, I hope to be able to produce something on Buddhist history, the role of Greek monks, Greek Buddhist monks in India in the earliest phase of Buddhism. There's a lot of interesting information that I've dug up, and I would like to present it in a nice video form. So stay tuned for that sometime perhaps this summer. So let's get on to the first question, Pia.
Ajahn, our first question today is from the live chat from Raphael. Dear Ajahn Sona, it is said to be rare to have a human birth and rarer still to hear the Dhamma and then be able to practice it. How might we interpret the fact that there are more human beings and thus likely more people hearing and practicing the Dhamma than at any point in our history?
Yes, the human population has increased drastically from the time of the Buddha. I don't know what the population would have been at that time, perhaps 5% of what is on the earth at present. So the human population has increased. Still, in terms of Buddhist cosmology, when we talk about beings, there's basically incalculable numbers of beings in different realms. So, for instance, the animal realm, we can see that the animal realm is vast, and that's just one of numerous realms. The others are basically invisible, but they're spiritually, it is possible psychologically or psychically to see into these realms. And there's unlimited numbers of beings in these realms. So the human realm has a fairly small population, limited population compared to that. Humans, of course, are migrating and transmigrating in and out of the human realm. So some are passing through the human realm and descending into lower realms, and other realms are maybe if we consider these heavenly realms as superior, then the lifespans expire in those realms, and then one might take rebirth as a human. And humans or beings are rising up from lower realms, also having completed their sentence in those realms, and possibly taking rebirth in the human realm. So the next level of this is that, of course, in this world, Buddhism is not by any means the largest of the religions. By the time you calculate in Christianity, Islam, and then the types of populations which have no particular religious affiliation. Modern China is not a religious state. Lots of materialists, etc. So then Buddhism would be in a minority of, in terms of the population. It is available, but there are also multiple schools of it, and some of them are such as, secular Buddhism approaches and so forth that are not really engaged in what we would, if you look at the Pali Canon and the advocacy and focus on karma and rebirth, then many of the psychological schools of Buddhism that are firmly committed to a materialist idea or a annihilationist doctrines and so forth, they're not what we would call Dhamma. They are not in accord with those Dhammas. By the way, they can be beneficial by all means, and a lot of people start without any reference to these otherworldly kind of doctrines. They start meditating, and then over time they open up to these ideas and so forth. So wherever you start from is okay with us, but whether it qualifies for what the Buddha would in the Pali Canon is talking about, or in any of the other major schools, they all hold the idea of karma and rebirth, etc. So now you're down to a smaller population. And many in the Buddhist countries, again, people are nominally Buddhist. They're so-called born into a Buddhist family, but you can't really be you're not born into Buddhism, and it's not a ceremony. It's a commitment and an exploration. And so now, again, we fall in terms of numbers to a certain smaller percentage of the population. What is available is more information is easily available now, and primarily through this very medium. Literally YouTube and books. Books can be quite confusing. There's quite a variety of them, and there's scholastic and academic books that are, you're wasting your time with quite often, and there's anthropological studies and psychology studies and scientific studies and everything that are really don't contribute to the person's personal development in terms of the Buddhist idea. But there are some very good books, including the actual translations of the words of the Buddha. The Pali Canon has mostly been translated, and especially important are the suttas, which I recommend translations by Bhikkhu Bodhi with the wisdom publications, nicely produced and available easily online, both in hardcover and digital, I think. There are some free resources as well. I think Sutta Central has quite a few, translated a lot of the Pali Canon as well, at least the suttas. The rules of conduct for monks are available, which is not so critical for lay people to spend a lot of time exploring, but at least one has a sense of what is expected from formally ordained monks in the Theravada tradition. So yes, a lot of information is available. Just have to know where to find it, and that is one of the problems: is over-information. So, and I think in most fields today is that there's a bewildering amount of information that you can see on the internet, and it is more or less overwhelming, and you kind of need a guide through the maze of misinformation, disinformation, and valid information. So this is can be another obstacle over-information can be an obstacle as much as under-information. But this is, in a sense, this is why we do this channel, is that my goal here is to provide a basic education in the Pali Canon and Theravada Buddhism, the basic ideas, in various formats of short, medium, and lengthy or exhaustive. Exhaustive meaning not that I intend to exhaust you, but I intend to exhaust the subject of it, to explore it as virtually in all aspects of it, just central topics of Buddhism. You can see that I give well over a dozen talks, extensive talks on loving kindness, for instance, or extensive talks on the Eightfold Path. The main central skeletal structures of Buddhism that in the Theravada, particularly in the Theravada tradition, the Pali Canon, and including some history, which, as I say, I mentioned earlier that I will be making some historical talks about the Western world earliest involvement in Buddhism. We tend to think of Buddhism as an Eastern religion, and it certainly in terms of the way we talk about the geography of the earth, India is so-called the East. But we imagine that Buddhism arises in India and then spreads to the East, eventually arriving in Japan as its last place. And but we should be aware that that Buddhism is not new to the West. European, especially Greeks were aware of Buddhism at a very early phase of history. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands Buddhism is very universal, and it's very functional for the present time as well. And this is the purpose of the YouTube channel and our podcasts and books as well. So I have several books that are available on Amazon, and the whole point of this is to provide education and access to mainstream Pali Canon Theravada type of teachings. And so although the population of the earth has increased in the human dimension, still humans finding their way to mainstream proper explanations is still a minority of the population. So we're trying to just make it available as much as we can. Okay, let's go on to the next question, Pia.
Ajahn, the next question is from Chloe in Los Angeles, California, United States. Dear Ajahn, I've had severe anxiety since I was a kid. How can it be improved? I do a lot of obsessive behavior.
Yes, anxiety is really treated not through thinking or even reflective therapies. I suppose it can be helped by, conversations and so forth. But the best cure for anxiety is pure samadhi meditation, the attempt to reduce the thinking process altogether. So this is serenity meditation, pure serenity meditation. It can be on the topic of the breath. By learning that there's a way to be awake and conscious without thinking is relief. Anxiety colors all your thoughts, and then the thoughts, which are colored by anxiety, feed back and into your bodily experience of this anxiety feelings. And it's so uncomfortable. It's a form of fear, it's a primary form of fear. And it's so uncomfortable that you seek relief from this by, you call it obsessive types of behavior. sometimes repetitive types of behavior. And I think this is kind of a form of rites and rituals. And rites and rituals often do calm people down. People, like, for instance, they'll do a typical therapy could be long-distance running and so forth. You'll find that some people who do extreme athletics are fundamentally anxious, and they're finding relief in these sometimes excessive kind of activities. The source of their anxiety might be trauma, traumatic experiences, etc. But the one amazing treatment for it is simply this pure serenity meditations, breath meditation, and also loving kindness inductions. I call them inductions because you're really trying to induce the spirit of goodwill and loving kindness, and it pervades the system. And the characteristic of loving kindness is that you feel safe, that you don't feel threatened, and that basically eliminates anxiety. So that's something to discover. Now, but it takes time and special efforts, and you really need to probably, in order to deal with the anxiety, you need at least two periods a day where you can access like a half an hour in a still room to get back to your dropping the thinking process. And first of all, getting to the place where you can reduce the amount of thinking you do, the obsessive thinking, is difficult in itself. So one commits to a whole program, a continuous program of a reduction of thinking. You won't get this advice in I guess, normative psychology. They'll want to talk you through things, but basically, no amount of thinking does, no amount of talking or thinking does it, because it's primary emotional quality that needs to be addressed, and it can be addressed only through this subsiding of the processing of the mind. So yeah, I recommend, if you want guidance, look at or listen to some of my talks on breath meditation and so forth, and then take it up and practice it. Loving kindness meditation also. Okay, next question.
Next question from the live stream is from No One Everyone in Iran. Dear Ajahn, what is the ultimate difference in the grand view of things in the Sarvastivada school, translated essentially as, quote, everything exists or all is, unquote, and Theravada's unified theory of everything, particularly in their Abhidhamma? In AN 4.77, the Buddha lays out 4 kinds of inquiries as, quote, unthinkable, unquote, and states that anyone who tries to think about them will go mad or get frustrated. Yet we have diverse sets of Abhidhammas, which mostly consist of unthinkable inquiries, and the same goes for many commentaries, such as the famous Visuddhimagga, which seems somewhat paradoxical.
Yeah, so we should say that there are a number of different schools. In the early days, not at the time of the Buddha, well, even at the time of the Buddha, you had break-off segments. Fortunately, the Buddha was alive to address these, that certain monks had wrong ideas about things. And they were also strong ideas. And so the Buddha corrected their ideas, or if they wouldn't give them up, then they were pushed out of the Sangha, they were removed from association, etc. So this is a human nature to be combative and argumentative and all of this kind of stuff. And the Buddha managed to put up with this and devised systems to push divisive types of ideas out. And by the way, so one of the most destructive types of actions that you can have is dividing a community that's in harmony. So that's what is called schismatic type of behavior. You can see the destructive nature of this in politics, where people work feverishly to try to confuse and divide the population of a country or an area or a culture, and for various power reasons, etc. So it's a very destructive type of activity. And it happens in all areas of human endeavor. Even in science, there's deliberate attempts to, there's reasons for, egotistic reasons or monetary reasons for confusing things, confusing ideas and so forth. So this is schools developed, and ultimately not too many decades after the time of the Buddha, there were up to 18 different schools. And the primary difference is they tend to agree on the suttas, and they also tend to agree on the Vinaya, the rules of discipline for the monks and nuns at the time. And where their disagreements are recorded is in this thing called the Dhamma. And Dhamma is, in general, thought of as the third part of the three baskets of the Buddha's teachings. The suttas, the discourses of the Buddha and a few of his disciples, which are voluminous. They're just that is, 12 times the length of the Bible. And then the rules of discipline for monks and nuns, it's very carefully recorded, and all of the reasons and situations how these rules developed. It's a body of law which is very sophisticated and very advanced for the time. We haven't caught up to it yet. And then this last area, I treat the last area as primarily commentarial. It's not, many in the traditional countries, this last area, Dhamma, which sometimes is translated as the higher Dhamma, but I would call it more like the abstract Dhamma, or I would consider it more or less a commentarial development by monks, probably not said specifically by the Buddha. And that's where you find the differences in the schools, and particularly in certain little areas. And it starts to remind you of physics. You see these areas like quantum physics and so forth. People, the Copenhagen interpretation and et cetera. This kind of disagreements at areas that are quite beyond. Ordinary people don't think about these things. It's the brighter, more analytical types that are exploring these things and having disagreements about them. So this is what this idea of this Sarvastivada school versus the Theravada. The Theravada, Vada means way. So Theravada, which I'm a member of this Theravada school, is the way of the elders. Thera means elder, Thera. By the way, pronounced Thera rather than Thera. Theravada. And then Sarvasti Vada. There's a number of Vadas, and some of the differences are very, very subtle, not really significant, not to be made too much of. There's no, So this, and then the next thing is mentioned is the Imponderables. What's his name? There's this.
This is, No One Everyone.
No One Everyone, nice name, is asking about these in AN such and such, Anguttara Nikaya, the numbered sayings. It talks about 4 imponderables, what I call them unthinkables. and this is, to this day, unthinkable. Is the universe infinite in space or finite? Is it infinite or finite in time? And so, to this day, astrophysics, you've got cyclical astrophysicists, some that think that the universe begins from nothing and then everything, arises out of nothing, and others say that it can't. Nothing arises from nothing. So this is is not only hard to pin down, but it's pretty well inconceivable. Something coming out of nothing is kind of inconceivable, but at the same time, infinity, that things have always existed and they don't come out of nothing. They always come out of something, but the something goes into the infinite past, or that it's infinite in space. That's hard to conceive of, and also impossible to conceive is this finite in space. Well, how would it be finite? What is it, a brick wall at the end of the universe? But you always ask, what's on the other side of the brick wall? So these are the imponderables. Some of now they don't, in the Abhidhamma, they don't discuss these imponderables. They know enough to stay away from that. But at the micro level, whether there are actually, and does anything have an essence to it? At the minute level, are there moments in time? Are there substantial moments? This is basically atomic physics. It's like the Greeks also came up with this idea of the atom, which is the not cuttable. That's the word atom means that which cannot be cut. So they theorize that at the smallest level there must be something that it is solid, and the universe is made out of these things. And then we had to wait 2,000 years to discover that there are atoms, and then we waited another decade or two, and it turns out, the atoms are cuttable. They're actually not substantial. They're not monads. So this is what Abhidhamma is dealing with as well. It can be dealt with. You don't have to have, elaborate machinery. You just need a good imagination and a high intellect to explore this dimension. So this is what Abhidhamma does, and I don't know whether it helps in any way. It's something that is interesting to some people, the Abhidhamma. There's interesting explorations of how the mind works, what we call psychology, like thought moments and consciousness and things like this. But the main information which people attained enlightenment to in the early days were primarily through the suttas, the discourses of the Buddha. They precede all things. Before the rules of conduct were laid down by the monks, or for the monks, people got enlightened. And before any Abhidhamma or commentarial literature was developed, people got enlightened. And how did they get enlightened? By hearing some basic teachings by the Buddha. So the suttas are the first information, and they're quite lucid and available, and they precede the other aspects of the suttas. They precede the division in the schools, and the record is that many, many people attained enlightenment through hearing those things or reflecting on those things. So that's how you would sort through this rather confusing and large amount of information. So we're back to a similar theme, like where is the central information in this massive thing called Buddhism, or in this massive thing called the philosophies of the world, etc. So we have to work through and get to where are the core and most fundamental types of information available. Yeah.
Next question is from Tamlin in London, UK. You've spoken about conviction over belief before in previous Dhamma talks. Where does conviction come from in Buddhism? Is it through deep meditation experiences, trusting the words of the Buddha, or maybe a mixture of the two?
Conviction can arise from a number of different things, ideas that ring positive, etc. All convictions are more or less, they're commitments is what they are. There's an interesting saying by, I think it's T.S. Eliot. Modern people, religious people, have opinions. Our ancestors had convictions. It takes more than an opinion to build a Gothic cathedral. And why is that? Because it takes generations. It could take 100 years to build a Gothic cathedral. You won't be alive to see the end of it, but you begin it because you have a conviction. And so that's what a conviction is that does it motivate you to act, to think, to speak, to act in a certain way? Then I would call it a conviction. Outside of that, there's all kinds of little temporary beliefs and opinions that don't really they're not really strong enough motivations to push you in a direction, to carry you in a direction. And so this is the difference. And we see this in humans, where the difference between people who have convictions and people who have mere opinions or something along those lines, beliefs, opinions versus convictions. Now, conviction, you can have wrong convictions, but in order to really sustain yourself over time, you have to have these commitments. It's a commitment. So how do they arise? They arise out of exposure to information. They arise out of existential decisions, so leaps of faith as well. This is in the West. We find this crisis in the Christian religions and in philosophy at a certain time in history, primarily the 19th century of Europe, or even before that, where all kinds of new ideas, a change of the structures of societies, the authority of kings and so forth is being questioned, and science is arising, new sociological, you're allowed to say certain things and think certain things. And then there is a crisis of faith and of conviction as well. So you have a school that arises called existentialism, and primarily this, in Europe, primarily the realization that the arguments for the existence of God, etc., have been under fire and question. And the best philosophers of the time, the brightest people, show that there's no compelling arguments on either side for or against the existence of God. What was considered to be reasonable arguments before are shown not to be compelling. They might be reasonable, but they're not compelling. So now you're left with, what do you do? So there's this called the leap of faith, kind of a commitment to it because you have to decide one way or the other. So this is the process. By the way, if you want more talk on this, I gave a whole talk called Life is the Game That Must Be Played. And you will find it on the channel, Life is the Game That Must Be Played. And this is the presentation of the variety of possible ways of thinking and believing, and the primary fact that you must make a choice, that you can't not make a choice. You must, since you're alive, you're already in the game, and you must play the game according to one way or the other. And it comes down to your own judgments and decisions. This, by the way, is very similar to the some of the most important suttas in the longer length sayings, the Digha Nikaya, and they are primarily what is called the all-embracing net of views. So there you get 62 games that could be played, 62 ways of playing the game. In other words, various philosophies and religious ideas have already been thought through at the time of the Buddha. The Buddha enumerates these various types of decisions and choices and opinions and all of this kind of stuff, and tries to sort of round up all of the possible ways of thinking about the situation of existence, and shows some of the why he rejects most of them, and what his own game plan is, the offering that he presents to people for how to play this game of life. Yeah. Okay, next question.
Next question from the live stream is from David in New York. In the past, I always thought I was a victim, so I resented others a lot. But while practicing, I realized that I was a very problematic and lacking human being. So the distress in my mind decreased a little. Is this the right way for me to do it?
Yeah, it's a it's a good beginning. Many people have been victimized. It's not pretending that whenever you feel like you're a victim, you're wrong. No, there's all kinds of historical situations where people are just rounded up and victimized, and it's not a pleasant situation to be in. But the only way to make it worse is to mull over, to always be searching for how people are exploiting you and everything. It's just a reduction of the types of thoughts which cause you distress. And so and most people will find themselves in a situation where they're not given full egalitarian treatment. They're not being treated properly. Now, if they sink into resentment and hostility, anger, dejection, sadness, they then themselves are inflicting that suffering on themselves. It's not the external situation that is inflicting the suffering. They produce it within their own mind. So one must be aware of this, and you are aware that the world is not fair. It is, and people are not fair, and that you will be mistreated and so forth. But the only choice that you have in this matter is whether you should suffer about it or not. And so the brighter solution is not to suffer about it. There's enough struggle and turmoil in life. Don't add any suffering to it. This is important advice psychologically, is that, yeah, of course, you don't get treated fairly. And how are you going to process that fact? Is it going to make you disappointed, etc.? The other thing is, yes, you realize that you can make problems for others as well. And you decide that it's not possible actually to walk through life and not make a problem for anybody, because you can't just try to make everybody happy all the time, because a lot of people have unjust expectations of you. They want you to cooperate. They'll be disappointed in you if you don't. The robber will be disappointed in you if you don't give them the money. But you're not willing to cater to everybody's tastes and opinions about how you should be. So you must commit also this idea that you are going to disappoint a lot of people very deliberately. Those who are unjust, unwise, and want to manipulate you, you are quite happy to disappoint them and make a problem for them. Those who are wise, just, etc., you are concerned for their opinion, and you are quite interested in not making problems for those who are wise, just, helpful. So that's the advice of the Buddha in terms of responding to the world around you. Do not follow the opinions of the foolish. Do not concern yourselves with the opinions of the foolish. Concern yourself with the opinions of some, that is, the wise. And that's how you navigate through life, and be thoroughly prepared that some people won't appreciate your behavior, but if your behavior is just and wise, then you do it anyway. But you don't just arbitrarily or enjoy making other people uncomfortable and making difficulties for them randomly.
Next question from the live stream is from Aloksa in Maine, United States. Dear Longpo Sona, any advice on breaking the chain of dependent origination at sense contact by using samasati, mindfulness, samapanya, wisdom and action, and samasamadhi, single-pointedness?
Yeah, so now I have to answer with an encyclopedia of response, but I want to make it brief. So dependent origination is a theory of causality in Buddhism. It is very brilliant. The Buddha is stepping outside of what most of the type of thinking that was available in the ancient world. And we would say that this is the beginning of science and psychology, the science of the mind as well. Does the mind work in a lawful way? Does the world around us work in a lawful way? And what are those laws? Can we deduce cause and effect in the mind, in the emotions, and in the world around us? The Buddha prioritizes the mind and emotions in terms of cause and effect. He's very interested in studying this. This is what we would, in modern times, call psychology, an attempt to understand the mind. What's the mind's relationship to the body? How is it influenced? Is it genetic, etc.? We're fascinated by studies of identical twins. They have all of the same genetic qualities, and are they identical in their thinking? Are genetics the dependent origination of how you are? So this is, in modern times we have this, we would call it dependent origination. What are we a product of nature, that is genetics, or are we a product of the environment, nurture, how we were raised, the place we were raised in, the time in history that we're in, the society that we're in? This is what is meant by dependent origination. So I just wanted to clarify that. This person is asking, and this is fairly common, as to how do we interrupt causal structures that produce suffering? So this is why the Buddha is interested in these cause and effect in the emotional dimension, is to reduce suffering. It's not just a science. It's actually it's an applied science to reduce distress in humans. And so we try to alter or interrupt links of causal chains in order to get the results that we want. The person is asking, at sense contact, when you see a sight, how do you respond to it? Much suffering comes from your interaction with sights and sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and thoughts, ideas. So if it's a beautiful day, sunny and lovely and so forth, you rejoice. But if your happiness is dependent on this sunny sights, then when it's dark and rainy, then you're dejected, you're saddened by this. So do you want to remain in this polarity that you have no control over, between being happy on a sunny day and sad on a rainy day? Could you interrupt that? So he's saying, at sense contact, the sight, can you alter that by the practice of samadhi or this kind of thing? So yes, you can do that. The area that I tend to teach in is the interruption at what's called the five hindrances. You have negative reactions to things, which is the negative emotions are anger, greed, agitation and restlessness, sloth and torpor, and unresolved doubt. These are called the five hindrances, and they produce and feed the problematic structures of the mind, and they keep you in a suffering mode. So if we reduce those, if we deliberately understand, interrupt anger and so forth, if we interrupt all of them, if we prevent, replace, interrupt anger, greed, agitation, sloth, and doubt, then we interrupt the causal process, which causes a great deal of suffering. So that's where I focus on. So in order to have more information about this, listen to my talks. I give talks on the five hindrances, etc., and the 7 factors of enlightenment. So listen to those, and that will guide you in terms of how to interrupt this causal structure, cause and effect structure in the mind. Okay, next question.
Next question from the live stream is from David in Barcelona, Spain. I am convinced that I am quite dumb. Which hindrance is this? These thoughts hurt quite a lot. What's the right effort towards feeling dumb?
Well, that is probably just a disposition. If you're listening to this YouTube Q&A, you're probably quite smart. You're not dumb. This is the instant IQ test. If you listen to Ajahn Sona's channel, you're not dumb. Let's say that everybody's dumber than somebody. Let's say we're all dumber than the Buddha. But you're smarter than others. This is what's called the bell curve. We can measure IQ and so forth, and we fall somewhere in a scale. We're smarter than some and dumber than others, and that's fine. And these are fairly hard to change. You kind of have a natural capacity, which is pretty. You can improve it to some degree by emotional retraining. So one of the thoughts that you need to let go of is the obsessive idea, which makes you sad, that you're dumb. So there's no point in thinking about it. If it's not changeable, why would you think about it? If it's changeable, then you should do something about it. And one of the things that you should do about it is, if you're really smart, you would not waste your time thinking about how smart you are. You would wisely choose to improve the quality of your life by eliminating distressing types of thinking, processing. So that's what you focus on. I sometimes ask people, what's the difference between being smart and being wise? So a smart person answers questions, basically any question that is presented. And our educational system is like this. They ask you questions, and if you answer them, you get an A. So they reward you for intelligence. But maybe the questions are irrelevant and a waste of your life. So a wise person refuses to get preoccupied with questions that is a waste of their life. They may even refuse to waste their time taking an IQ test, because all you're going to find out is something that you either can change or can't change. So why waste your time? A wise person, the mark of wisdom is that you don't waste your time. You know what's important. You have a sense of what's important, not what the answer to any question is, but what is the most important question. So you use your time to answer the important questions. And the really important question the Buddha gives is why suffer unnecessarily? So your first IQ test that's important is should you think about being dumb or not? And you shouldn't. And you will feel better now. And at the same, then you go on to do things that smart and wise people do, and that is to absorb information which improves the quality of your emotional life. Yeah. Okay, next question.
Next question from the live stream is from Nikonar. Hi, Ajahn. Thank you for your talk. Please, could you give guidance? I have some fear over my lung cancer transplant, immunotherapy, which starts tomorrow.
Immunotherapy. Wow, lung transplant. You've had a lung transplant, and now you're going to get immunotherapy for that, so that your body doesn't reject that new lung, and you're concerned about that. Well, I suggest that you stop being concerned about that, because that very concern and worry tends to weaken your immune system. This is very, people. This is kind of odd language to be used, but when you get sick, even extreme sicknesses, it's very important to think nothing strange is happening. Everything is okay and normal. Sickness itself is normal. Life, nothing odd, nothing strange is happening. There are no surprises here. Everything is just normal. No matter what kind of sick, you get told you got cancer, heart ailments, you're going to have your leg amputated. No problem. Everything's ordinary, normal. Nothing. There's no surprises. No shocks. No surprises. This is normal life. This is the nature of bodies, a human body. By the way, you have no idea how your body grew or why it has cancer, or this is just a product of nature, isn't it? The body is a biological production from vast millennia, millions of years of evolutionary products and so forth, and it is a thing that you happen to use to stump around on in life. You move it around and feed it and so forth, bathe it, but it's full of treacherous structures, which is no surprise. Nobody should be surprised. It's impossibly complex. No amount of medical knowledge can ever completely predict or understand it all. And so it has potential problems in it, but the worst thing you can do is create suffering around it. You just say, it's a thing. It's an amazingly complex thing that we use as a vehicle to get ourselves around, but it's nothing to worry about. And by the way, it just dies after a while. So we all know that. We all know that after... once you're 5 years old or so, you realize, oh, I'm going to die too. Yeah, we're all going to die. And in the meantime, all kinds of weird and unpredictable things are going to happen to this body of ours. And so there's nothing to worry about or be surprised about or anything. If the doctors tell you to take the immunotherapy, you take it. And that's all you can do. We're not the experts, so we listen to the experts and do it. We have if the chemotherapy can be very harsh for some people, not everybody. Chemotherapy and radiation and all this can be make you very, very ill, and people have to make decisions at that point whether they want to extend their life by a few months or something by by being very, very ill, or less ill, but the illness accelerates and so forth. So they have to make the decision what is best for them at that point. And usually the medical experts are quite clear about that. They say, now this is going to be very, very toxic, and you're not going to feel well. It might extend your life by 6 months or something like that, or a year. Or if you don't take it, you will probably feel less sick, but it may shorten your lifespan and so forth. So, but they usually leave it up to you to make that decision. But again, that decision is not like, it shouldn't be a surprise or traumatic or anything. It's just a normal decision we have to make. This whole idea, everything is normal. Nothing strange is happening. When we get sick and have to face these events of possible death of others, death of ourselves, etc., nothing unusual is happening. There's no reason to be alarmed. It's just normal. It is what we should be aware that such things happen right from the day one. Well, not day one, maybe from day 5 years. You should be told by your parents that, yes, people get sick. Some people die. You will die as well. And there's nothing unusual about this. Okay, let me make one last announcement. This will be the last of the live stream Q&A for the summer of the Northern Hemisphere, the winter of the Southern Hemisphere. We will resume probably in September, and with the Q&As. We'll give you a little rest from these live stream Q&As. But stay tuned to the channel, because we will be putting up some very well-produced, highly edited, rather than the spontaneous Q&A type thing, highly edited and well-produced videos of Dhamma talks and some historical explanations at all. So stay tuned to the channel, and we will resume our Q&As. So we haven't, I don't have a specific date, but probably in September or something like that. Yeah. Okay. That is all for today.